Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. And just like that, I don't leave you for very long. We are back with another amazing episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. I'm your fabulous host, Shanasia Washington, streaming from the beautiful city of Houston, Texas. And guess what? It's no secret. It's my favorite place to be. And we have another amazing guest. I don't skimp on my guests. I already know. I think something is going to happen to shift in this episode. So I'm very excited about this lady that's coming to the stage. You guys know the drill. We don't take a long time around here. She comes to the stage, tells us her name, where she's streaming from. And guess what? She jumps right into that story. Without any further waiting time, here's our very fabulous guest for today.
Hello, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. My name is Dr. Rebecca Palacios. I'm a National Board Certified Teacher. I was born and raised, and I live here in Corpus Christi, Texas, not too far down from Houston there. And I'm so excited to share my story about being a career teacher. Had a call for that very early on as a young little girl, always wanted to be a teacher. And through my 34 years of working as a teacher in Corpus Christi, Texas, in early childhood settings, my dream came true. I was able to not only be a teacher, but to be able to be involved in teacher leadership, to be able to mentor new teachers, to work with families, to work on a national scale, and to be able to now continue, as I've retired, to motivate families to continue to help their children every day. And I work with families in English and Spanish, trying to get them going and started in working with literacy, math, science, social studies, art, and music, everything that's really important to give a child a head start in their life and to continue it on through their educational career, into their professional careers, and onto their lives, because everything that we do is an important impact. My philosophy or a guidance as an early childhood teacher, as a pre-K teacher, it was the first time that parents had been around in school for a while since they were in school. So my motto is, you never have a second chance to make a good first impression. So that first impression in coming back to school is a welcoming one for parents. We know right now everybody's coming back to school, and it's an important, positive way to welcome parents back, and not only welcome them on that first day like we do the kids, but to keep them involved. And to me, that's my next journey of my mission in this life.
So basically, Dr. Rebecca said she's not tired of these kids just yet. She's been working with them for so long and she's not tired yet. So thank you for your fight, because Dr. Rebecca, these kids, they build a little different these days. They got a lot more, more edge and everything. So I'm just happy and excited that you're still committed to the fight of educating these children. When I was researching you and checking out your background, one of the things that came to path, and you shared about being early in your career and losing your father early and kind of going through some of that, really that grief and that trauma. I want you to talk us through that, because it's very important that you talk about that, because obviously that did not deter you from your journey. There may have been some setbacks, of course, that you had to deal with, but you continue to push through and build this life and legacy for yourself. And then also in that, just kind of layer in, because I want people to know the strides. Dr. Rebecca was a teacher of the year way back in 1987. So this is not a new lady to the space. I want her to talk about that, and also to some of those early strides in education.
Well, early on, those challenges were really critical in my life. Losing my father when I was in just beginning high school, and then my mother as I was finishing college. Those 2 points of my life were very grief-stricken. My husband and I have been together a long, long time. We also met in junior high. So we have been together 50 years next year, married. So his support, his help through all those times of grief and so forth that I was going through, took me to places where it was really difficult as a young mother, as a young teacher, to get over, because sometimes we have those red flags in our life. We know that mental health is really, really important. I've lived it, having that grief in my family, and losing my parents very young, very early. Not having their support was really difficult at the very beginning. But I had my goals. I started having my children. I was going to be a teacher, and I knew I had to lift myself up, not only for myself and my husband, but for my children and those that were coming. And so I have 5 children, and we have 12 grandchildren and 1 on the way. So my life has been about family, and family is critical for all of us. And so going through that time of my life, I went through agoraphobia, which means you can't get out and do things. Your grief has taken over, and you get depressed, and it's hard to be out in public. And so I had to overcome that, because the person that I was as a young girl, it was a very active one. I was a twirler in the band. I was out in front of hundreds of people, twirling and marching and talking. I was doing speeches as a youngster. I knew I wanted to be a teacher, so I was practicing that skill set. And then to lose it, having that fear and being out and doing those kinds of things, was even difficult for me to drive or go into church and be in a crowd. To lose all that was really, really tough. But I knew that it has to come from within, that resilience, that wanting to come back and do that. So my big moment was being nominated to serve on the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards in 1987, which was, about 8 to 10 years into my career. And so overcoming that and having to fly and to go to different parts of the country to meet and be around people, that was like a make or break for me. But I knew that I had to do it. It was an important goal, because I had prayed, I don't want to just be a teacher. I want to be a great teacher for these kids. I want to be the best I can be. And I can only do that if I practice that resilience, that coming back and trying to do better. And I did. I worked coming. And so flying that first time was nerve-wracking, but it was such a joy to do it, because losing it and coming back and having it was huge. And I think the epitome of all of that, so you'll know that how dark it got, and then to rise to the brilliance of that, of coming out of those moments, is I got to introduce President Clinton at a White House reception. And you talk about being nervous and scared. I not only did that one, but I did another part where he was present at a memorial for Albert Shanker, he was the president of the American Federation of Teachers. And I was asked to speak at his memorial service, and there was about 2,000 people there. And the president was speaking, I was speaking, and Vice President Gore was speaking. So you talk about meeting your fears head on. I had those moments, and I'm so happy to tell you that I was able to overcome them and face the fears. And you know what? Sometimes they come through, but we have to be positive. We have to be resilient. We have to image ourselves into those positive moments through intent, really, positive intent on the impact that we can have as a person to rise above those barriers, those challenges, and to try to be the best that you can be.
See, I told y'all Dr. Rebecca got some strong strides in the education space. And for you to say, like, I was going through all this and I went to introducing President Clinton, it's like hats off. And to probably know, no, seriously, because even, back then, I think our support system, I'm sure your support system probably wasn't as strong as you can find today in terms of representation and everything. So to go back to the 80s, that's not a small thing, knowing what you had to overcome to get to that space. So I tell my guests often, especially when I know that people have been tried and true to their journey, this is a place where I can give roses and give them more abundantly in the way in which I feel that I have been crafted to do. So I definitely roses in this space, Dr. Rebecca. I want to do this before we kind of go to the books in terms of like the education space. And we know this from different perspectives, and you've been around for, a while. What has been the biggest change and transformation you think in education since the time that you started your journey to kind of where you are now?
Well, I think that's a twofold question. I think part one of it is the lack of support for public schools right now, as far as political climate and financial support. So the professionalism when it comes to schools, I was, very revered as a teacher in, the 80s or in the 70s, beginning out into the 80s. I think we've lost a lot of that traction. You can see that, we're losing our best and our brightest of our teachers. We want to retain them and keep them and want to attract them into the profession. I think that's foremost in the way that we look at it as a whole. I think that's one of the changes that has happened in our world. Teachers, people always like me wanted to be a teacher. This is my goal and this is my love and that was my calling. And I think we've lost that ability to attract teachers, to give them that creative energy, that support that is needed for them to stay and to support them financially so that they don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs to be able to make ends meet. The second part is not just the teachers and the profession. I think the twofold part of that is that dichotomy with the students. What has changed with them? I know what has changed. I mean, and I work for EdTech. I work in a lot of different spaces. And one of those things that has changed, not only for the good, but also for the difficult challenges and barriers, is technology. And so we see a lot of kids now focused on social media and technology instead of spending that quality time reading and doing, hands-on tasks, things that we know are going to make a difference in being creative thinkers and curious thinkers. Social media has drawn that time away from the family, from that time together. Even though devices are really good, we can't exist, for example, here without technology. We need it. We need them to be useful, but we need them to also be, in a way, not distracted, being a distraction to the school system, the school setting. So I think that has changed kids in the way that we ask them to do different things because of the way that technology has impeded in many ways our time with them.
That is so good because I'm also I'm a mother. He's technically a second grader starting Wednesday. It's important to me that he has that technology backing because he's obviously going to need it, but also to keep it in line. Like, okay, no, it's time to put the tablet down. It's enough screen time. Let's maybe get out here and walk around the driveway or just have a conversation or read a book because it's so easy, right? Because kind of keeps them quiet and occupied just to go the technology route. But I'm always kind of getting those cues, like, okay, making sure that he's getting off and we still have a healthy relationship with reading. So I'm happy that you bring that up because it just makes me be more laser focused on my journey for him. I want to go into the books now because I looked at the covers, such beautiful covers. I want you to kind of talk about that day that Dr. Rebecca said, you know what, I'm going to put the pen to the paper or whatever that looked like. And then write the books because sometimes it takes us a while to get there. We know a long time ago we're supposed to be writing books, but sometimes it takes a process to get there. And then the other part, there's this character of Anna. Let's talk about Anna because Anna is doing a lot of different things. I want to talk about where Anna came from and then kind of talk about some of these adventures because I see Anna is taking the world by storm. So let's talk about it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, it's really exciting. As an early childhood teacher, I always wanted also to write books that would help teachers in the classroom. Being a teacher myself, I knew there were certain points and things that make a difference in children, especially at that young age. And so I always wanted to write these books. I hadn't figured out, I call it the wrapping, how I wanted to wrap these messages around. And so all through my career, I kept thinking about it and just kind of brainstorm and keep ideas in the back of my mind. And then after I retired and we were driving actually to California, my husband was driving and I was reading. And out of the blue, in the middle of the desert near Sonora, Texas, somewhere, it came to me just out of the blue. I feel like God sent me this message and I got it immediately. And I had my laptop right below my seat. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And my husband's like, what? I'm like, oh, don't say anything. I have an idea. Don't say anything. And I had the idea for the first book, which is really the second book. I had the idea for that first book in my mind, and it came to me just out of the blue. And I wrote that first book in like 30 minutes. I wrote it and crafted it. And I knew that there were 4 things that I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover early childhood, then that love of learning that kids have that energy, excitement to come to school when they're little. And second, I wanted to cover dual language learning because that's really important to learn 2 languages and to support it and have that support in the classroom. And the third, I wanted to really showcase the importance of family engagement and how important it is for families to continue, like I said, to be involved and to be part of the school, not just on that first day of school when you're so excited, but all through their career, all through their lifelong journey of learning in a setting, in a school setting. And the last one, I wanted to really, as a teacher, create the energy of the teacher and give her agency, give her the ability to say, that's how we're losing teachers, right? We don't give them teacher agency or a chance to make decisions. And I wanted them in a model in the Ana book, it's Miss Chavez, to have that agency, to be able to say, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's talk about it and let's learn about it. Because I think kids learn from their own interests, and we can cover that with standards and everything in curriculum, that we have to integrate student love and interest in there as long as the teachers have that input as well. And so you're going to see that throughout the series. I've written 22 books since. They all just started coming to me, and I started writing them. And then I have a fabulous team that has come together. My agent and partner in Somos Uno LLC, Sumaya Jackley. She has been just a great asset in helping me publish the books and get them out.
See, now look, see, y'all missed this. Dr. Rebecca said she went from writing a book in 30 minutes to having 22 books. Look at the stride. She said she wrote the first one in 30 minutes, and now she's to a 22-part series, right? So that's what I talk about, that birthing and purpose. Like when it's time to go and you know that you've had it to go, it just starts flowing like the river waters. And that is the point that we drive here. I have to talk about this because this is still very, very important to me. These representation in books. It's why what you do is so important. It's why what you do is so important for your culture, for the children that relate to your culture, and the ones that don't even relate to your culture. Even here in our household, it's so important that we diversify our reading materials because we live in a world that's so diverse. And the last thing I'm going to do, Dr. Rebecca, is not educate my child about this melting pot that we live in. I want you to speak specifically from representation in books, your experience in the education space, and what have you seen as it relates specifically to the books and how they evolved, or maybe even some gaps that we're still missing.
Well, definitely books are what open, doors to the world, to the ability to imagine who you are and who others are, and where you can go and what you can do. And there's nothing like a good book that'll take you those places. And, we talk about this very beginning strife and the things that I went through, it took many times a book just to bring me back into that space where I could, it takes you places, whether it's to relax or to learn or to enjoy or to research. I mean, books have multiple points and objectives, and there's so much you can learn from. And so when we talk about especially multicultural education and bringing those to children, we want to tell them that there's a world out there. It's not just what's in their immediate, four walls, but what exists out there in the world. And how do we introduce the world to children? Because we know, as we said, technology has opened, the world to us in milliseconds. You can connect with somebody in China, Vietnam, you can connect to somebody in the Philippines or Brazil or Costa Rica, anywhere, via Zoom, via any platform that you can imagine. So kids are going to have this. We're going to have that ability to work with people around the world. And we have to know who that world is. And the only way to do that is to expose them early on and in multiple ways, to languages, to foods, to cooking, to culture, to art, to music, and the diversity that is the beauty of our world and the way that it exists. And the children that I taught were always so joyful when we read different books from different places. And I, in my career, have had the opportunity to travel and work with teachers in other parts of the world, from Russia to Egypt, to Costa Rica, to China, to Mexico, just different places around the world. And every time I went, I would bring back a book in my classroom where that reach and that touch, and the kids were just like in awe. And I would bring out a map and show them this is where I went. Look how far it went. You can't only go there in a plane. You have to travel this. And so the reality of all that, bringing the world to children, showing them, this is what South Africa looks like. This is where I went. Let me show you. Having that experience is like nothing else for kids, because they realize it's not just me and my community, but it's me and my world. And we want to open the world to children, because that's the only way they're going to see the connections they're going to make in their future careers.
So important, but because in all transparency, I feel like I probably wasn't open to the world ish to maybe after college. Of course, I grew up in my community and things of that sort. We did kind of like local travel here and there. And then when I, started managing, global teams, my life changed forever. And I tell people that was one of the pivotal turning points in my life, because to have conversations with people, of course, through technology in different places of the world, to understand their work habits, to understand what they believe, just gave me a different perspective in the world. And I would never change that. I was like, that's when I became for real grown, Dr. Rebecca. I was just kind of play grown. To have more diverse perspective, that's when I really started to mature. I want to go back here because you talked about a partnership with Somos Uno, which is great. And I love to hear when people make great partnerships. What has made that such a great partnership? I know that you've kind of spoke a little bit, about meeting her and changing it. And I like to go here because we can't do it all alone. And I want people to know that those partners and those drivers can help shift us to the next level. So what makes that such a strong partnership, and what have you gained the most from that partnership?
Well, I think what I learned early on, you have this wonderful idea about books, right? You think, oh, I can publish the books and I can do all these different things, but there's so many different steps to all of that. There's such a world that I had to learn that I had no idea about, and you have to partner with somebody that does. And so having Sumaya as an agent and beginning to talk about this and trying to get the book out and of course I was writing this book in 2019, and the pandemic hit, so then there was no paper, and publishers were laying off people, and all of these challenges were happening in the publishing world, and it was not an optimum time for me to do any of that. And even after, it was really hard to break in the way that I write. I think the way that the books are written, I think, and I feel that it's a different genre, because it's not only an enjoyable read aloud book that you're reading to children, it's a book that parents can read with their children and learn about family engagement. And it's a book that teachers can read and learn about teaching. And so it's not just an enjoyable book, it's a teaching book. And it's, to me, a different kind of writing style that I don't think I've ever seen anybody else do. So when you do this, you have to partner with somebody that understands the messaging. And the publishers out there at that time didn't. And Sumaya did. She got it. And that's important, to have somebody that gets it and will run with it. And Sumaya has such a brilliance of the publishing world and much more, and knows how to meet and greet and work with people and have them understand the message as well. And so our partnership began. We're like, we're going to do this ourselves. We're going to do this, and we're going to create this woman-owned business, minority woman-owned business, and we're going to do this, and we're going to make it successful, because we know the message and we know what it will mean to families, children, and teachers. And so going out and doing that and really seeing the value, we're starting off, and this is our launch. And our 2 books are coming out next week. This coming month. And so I'm hoping next week, but they're down the road in this month. And so we're launched 4 books already, and then the next 2 are on the way. And of course, each of the 4 has a Spanish partner. So there's really 8 books. Every time one English one publishes, one Spanish one is published as well. They're the translation of it. So I'm super excited that Sumaya really saw my vision and my mission and feels it, and we both believe in it so heartily that we're going to see this through.
I love it. And talk briefly about those next books. I think we touched on it slightly, but I know that those series are targeting a different group of children in terms of age. I think it's like more like fourth, fifth, and sixth.
No, actually, well, that's a different series. The Anna series has 22 books. We've only published the first 4, like I said, with the 4 Spanish counterparts, and the other 2 are the part of the 22 in the series. I'm working on another separate series. It's an Hispanic heritage series that we're hoping to launch is going to talk about prominent Hispanics especially in Corpus Christi, in my area. We have wonderful people that I want to focus on that haven't been, really talked about outside of our community. And I think the world needs to know about them. So I'm going to be launching that. That's a little bit further down the road, and that's still a goal. But the Anna series is launching with Anna Science Time and Anna and the Hurricane, which you and I know in the Houston area is really big. So I wanted to write about those challenges that we have with weather and with science. And so those are the two books that are coming up next.
Oh, I love it. I wanted to make sure I had that clarification. And yes, I love the fact that you are going to highlight some people that may not be the most well-known names or whatever. And then also too gives you a different kind of layer and context to your experience with a different writing style. So that's absolutely amazing. So I'll be spying around Dr. Rebecca so I can see what you do.
You're awesome. Thank you.
So I'll be spying around to see specifically what you're doing. Let me say this. I mean, you've lived such, I think, already a strong legacy in education. I think it's been strong. And then you've continued to do this even post-retirement in writing. If you could just say life and legacy, maybe you feel that you've gotten to a point where you feel strong, that you're close to living what you said legacy would be. But if you can say anything about life and legacy, Dr. Rebecca, what would that be? And what are you doing now to ensure that you're committed to leaving a lasting legacy?
Well, I'm hoping that this company that Sumaya and I created, Somos Uno, we are one, is what it means in English. Somos Uno will continue as a legacy company, that my grandchildren will take it over in some point down the road and continue the idea of what Anna can do and what she can deliver, but not just, bringing this Hispanic culture forward for people to read about around the world, but how can Anna be a useful tool in other kinds of opportunities that we can talk about, as teacher professional development and family engagement, all the things that I still feel are critical in this time with parents and with teachers. We all continue to learn and grow. It's a lifelong skill, and I'm hoping that this company will continue to do that, and hopefully that my teaching career will bring ideas to others who may be seeking the profession. I encourage teachers to, I know it's hard times, but we need you. We need your brilliance. Those of you that are willing to bring forth the next generations of learners into the world. And we need you to come and help and be a part of that future.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So where do we find the books, Dr. Rebecca, and how do people connect with you if they just want more information or need your insight or whatever that looks like? Just tell us where to connect and where we can find those books.
Yeah, so the books are in Somos Uno, LLC.com. So we can find the books. You can buy them there. You can learn more about me and Sumaya on the Somos Uno website. You can just Google Somos Uno LLC and it'll pop up. And we have our website information. We have our emails there, and you can email us and find out more information.
I love it. Now, Dr. Rebecca, this is the part of our show we cue to you for final thoughts. If someone was just to skim across this and just capture this particular segment, what would be your final parting words that really, really just capture the essence of Dr. Rebecca?
Well, I think that's an amazing task because I feel like I've been blessed with so many different opportunities and support. If it wasn't for my principals, the teachers that I worked with, my husband, my family, all of the people that have made me who I am, my parents, all those who gave me opportunities along the way, the American Federation of Teachers as a teacher, the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, all of the people that I worked with at ABC Mouse, at Age of Learning, also all the companies that I continue to work with, the Teacher Created Materials. They published my family engagement book called Being Your Child's Most Important Teacher. All the people, all the works, all of the joy that has been part of my career, all my students who I still dearly love, and all their families that have touched me. I've been a learner, I've been a grower, and I feel like that is something that is just a memory that I can never, express enough, because there's been so many, and I thank them all for that opportunity, for being who I am and for taking me into this realm of help and support and being an author and an educator in many different ways. And I also think that one of the other groups that was really important to me was the National Teacher Hall of Fame, because I was inducted in 2014 into the National Teacher Hall of Fame, and that group of outstanding teachers who have been recognized is hugely an impactful group. And I just want to bring kudos to all the people who should be in there and who still go unrecognized. So there are unsung heroes, and I commend them all. And I encourage, again, teachers to enter into the profession.
Oh, I love it. I knew it was going to be a good episode. I told you that at the beginning. I just felt that, I can feel these things. But Dr. Rebecca, I have to thank you so much for and just keep putting all of the energy and all the expertise in the earth. I think you're doing a beautiful job. And to all of our viewers and listeners who are watching us on today, we want to thank you. I will never leave this place without telling you that I love you. And to remember, as the podcast says, to let your voice shine that can transform things and put great things to the earth. Until next time, we'll be back with another fabulous episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast, and we're out.